and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I'm your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. While most of our attention year-round obviously goes to football and or NASCAR, we love the tournament time. We love college basketball. My co-host a little bit more than me. But any opportunity we have to talk gambling, to talk ways to find some value, find some good teams to target, we're going to jump on it. So we're going to talk some March Madness today. And with me to do it, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Yeah, like you alluded to, this is my Christmas. I look forward to this time of year every year, all year. I was telling Kyle pre-recording, I've been watching One Shining Moment videos on a loop today. I cannot get enough of the NCAA tournament, and you bet your ass I'll be watching tomorrow night's playing games too.
Yeah. Yep. If I can bet on it, I will be watching it.
Yeah.
As we debated a little bit before the show, I'm Team Masters over Team March Madness, but the fact that March gets both of these events is a strong competition for greatest time for sports in the year.
Yeah.
The other time would be like September when football's college and pro are starting, baseball playoffs, hockey playoffs. Those are the two. But in the comments below, let us know March Madness or the Masters. You can only watch one for 2022. Is it March Madness? Is it the Masters? I am team golf. Brian's team.
Yeah, you could probably just put Kyle or Brian as I am definitely team March Madness on this.
Although I'm very happy that we don't have to be making that decision. We will have to make several decisions though, Brian. So we are going to go region by region, talk about some of our favorite teams in the region, teams that could make a little noise, teams that you may want to avoid, and teams that present value. So we're going to use FanDuel Sportsbook today just because it's the cleanest, easiest way to go region by region.
Yep.
We'll also throw up the March Madness bracket just to get a look of, kind of where we're at and, what's going on and stuff. So let's throw up the East region, Brian, as that's where we will start. And we can make some decisions here. So we got Baylor, a 1 seed, your defending champion. Made so much money on Baylor last year. Impressive to see them still be a 1 seed after the injury issues they've gone through in a really loaded Big 12.
Yeah.
To see them still end up with a 1 seed is impressive. Maybe that says more about the field and kind of, what they're looking at. I guess before we dive into these super hardcore, where are you at kind of in general? Is this a more balanced year? Is there a few teams that you really think are the favorites, and then everybody else is just kind of second fiddle? Where's your head at going into this tournament?
Well, I mean, like the majority of experts and analysis you're going to see on TV, I feel as if Gonzaga and Arizona are easily the two strongest teams as we come into the tournament. Now, the injury to Kerr Kriisa for Arizona is definitely going to have an effect as they get a little bit further along in the tournament, because having that primary ball handler is uber important in this kind of tournament style play. But still, they're loaded. And then after those two teams, honestly, I could see a tournament getting pretty wacky with a couple of 4s, maybe a 6 thrown in here. I mean, like Texas, for instance, in this East region came into the year as one of the top 10 shortest odds to win the national championship. They've got a guy in Marcus Carr transferred from Minnesota who can be that March kind of Kemba takeover type of player. So, I mean, I think this year it's kind of up in the air after that Gonzaga and Arizona. And even they could fall. If you've watched college basketball at all this year, the parity is as great as we've ever seen. So if anybody tells you they know who is going to get there, they're full of shit.
Yep. And we've seen with teams like Gonzaga, like Kansas, like Arizona, that even in the years they look like they're one of the best teams, they find a way to exit early. I always look at guard play. I think that's the most pivotal thing. I think you need a guy who can not only handle the ball, but that's what you need to be. You need to be able to shoot threes. You need to be able to have that pressure, because it's during the season, it's a lot easier to rely on that big and kind of work through conference play. But when the tournament comes around, it really seems like the teams that have the elite guard play are the teams that can really make noise, make a run, find a way to, you could find a team that's, we're always going to look for that 5-12 matchup, that 3-14 matchup. If you find a lower seeded team with amazing guard play against a higher seeded team that is just fine and like has really solid bigs, that may be an opportunity to strike. So yeah, I did want to get that out of the way. So let's start with the East region, Brian. I guess what teams are guarding? I mean, the aforementioned Texas is in here. Purdue, both of us are Big Ten fans, so we watch a lot of Big Ten
Yes.
basketball. St. Mary's being a 5 seed, I think, is going to be a little more surprising, I think, to people kind of just jumping into college basketball at this point. But, where's your head at in terms of this region? Who do what team is immediately grabbing your attention?
Well, like you said, I mean, both of us watched the Big Ten all year. So obviously Purdue was somebody that I've had my eye on all season. They their defense is scary for a lot of people picking in this tournament. And you've seen them falter to many teams, including my Michigan team, which is probably why they're 3 and not on that 2 line. But they can score as good as anybody in the tournament. They have the potential number 1 pick in Jaden Ivey. I mean, that dude is a scoring machine.
Yep.
They're very well rounded, and at a 3 seed, even if they face the aforementioned Texas, not facing Kentucky, who again is this is a weird Kentucky team. It's a little bit older with some transfers, so they don't have the top echelon talent that we've seen in past of John Calipari teams. And so for me, Purdue is kind of that dark horse to get out of this region.
Yeah.
Like Baylor missing Jonathan Chachua, and their backcourt isn't quite as good as it was last year. And like you said, guard play comes into play very heavily in this part of the year. So I like you. Honestly, for me, I'm looking at a potential UCLA Purdue Elite 8 matchup with one of them getting to the Final Four.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, a lot of that UCLA team that made the Final Four last year is back. Johnny Juzang.
They actually returned 4 of their top 5 starters from that team, and they actually improved on the front court with getting Cody Riley back and getting transfer Miles Johnson from Rutgers. So,
yeah,
like, you say what you will about UCLA's season, but this is the same team, and it's a year older now from last year's run.
And I wonder if we're in a mode of, okay, guys, like, obviously we want to be really good, but like they gotten kind of like, okay, we're not going to be able to reprove anything until we get back there. So let's get into the tournament. Let's figure it out once we're there. And they got in, they're, a solid 4. Like they're not probably kind of what we were thinking preseason, but they got there. They're finding form at the right time. And like you said, they could easily be a team that finds a way to Final Four and it, is potentially cutting down the nets when we're all said and done. Let's flip over and look at the odds. And obviously Baylor, the 1 seed, plus 240 to come out. Kentucky plus 240. There's the UCLA at 5-1. Purdue at 550. Texas at 10. North Carolina at 20 is interesting to me. And maybe it's like we saw flashes. We saw what they did to Duke. They probably aren't
how
that
strong
team,
is
but that
Duke
number is
really?
interesting.
I mean,
huh?
But how strong is Duke really this season?
So that's interesting. I'm interested when we get to Duke, because that's gonna be an interesting conversation. But I guess if we're looking, so let's start with the Baylor, Kentucky, UCLA, and Purdue, 5.5, 5 plus 240 plus 240. What is most interesting to you in that region? Is there you like Purdue and UCLA to kind of one of those 2 teams to come out? Is there a scenario where maybe you take a shot on both? Do you like one over the other? Where's your head at with that?
So honestly, just looking at this, I'm going directly in the middle of these guys, and I'm going with UCLA, Purdue, and Texas, and probably putting a little bit of money on all of those. Yeah. Just knowing that Carolina, first they got to get past the Marquette team, who has shown spurts this year, just like they have, of being able to score the bucket. And with Shaka Smart over there, like, never count them out. But knowing they're going to have to face Baylor in the second round, so the likelihood of them getting past even the first weekend is not great. So to me, I'm not too keen on betting them. But when you look at UCLA, Purdue, and Texas, all of them, basically the path sets up for them to face each other.
Yeah, I'm gonna flip over and we'll look at it real quick. But yeah, as you mentioned, North Carolina, they have to get through Marquette, then they have to get through Baylor, then they would probably have to play either
UCLA.
St. Mary's or UCLA. That is a very tough road to have a shot.
Yeah, and that's why, like, for me, North Carolina, it's a great number, and they're a very well-known team, and I feel like they'll have some public money on them just because of that. But for me, I don't think they really have a legit shot this year. The UCLA experience factor from last year, I think, is going to be huge. In with the reasoning why I like them to potentially come out of the East, and then knowing you got Purdue and Texas, to me, the two most likely teams to come out of that bottom part of the bracket. I mean, I'm completely glossing over Kentucky, but Kentucky, I don't know.
I feel like this could be the year, though, right? Like, this feels like a team that, like, Calipari always has these young studs, and it just never quite works out.
Yeah,
and every once in a while they put together maybe a little more veteran leadership. I don't know. Like, Calipari is just he's an NBA factory, so I don't necessarily love him. But the SEC is a lot better this year than it has been. There's some really good teams coming out of there. Maybe they're not the team to make a real run, but I'm with you. I think definitely looking at that half of the bracket is probably the move. I like Purdue. I like Texas. I think those would be my two favorite bets. St. Mary's is interesting, but once again, you're gonna if you get through the whoever you play out of the playing game, you have to play UCLA likely, and then you'll have to play likely play Baylor. Like, obviously, a lot could happen.
Or even if they're playing North Carolina, they're going to be a dog to the Tar Heels as well. Like, they're going to be, if it stands chalk and St. Mary's advances, they're going to have to win 3 consecutive games as pretty big dogs to get to the Final Four, and that's not likely to happen.
Any of these other teams interesting to you? Vodtech has looked plucky in the ACC. Indiana made a really nice run at the end of the Big Ten season.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think Indiana has the scoring. I do actually, just to give a little insight, I'm leaning the winner of that Wyoming-Indiana game to potentially beat St. Mary's. I think both of those schools play the kind of game that can match what St. Mary's likes to do and keep it slow. So, and I think they have just the better talent-wise on the court. So I think for me, that's a good spot to kind of get some value. But Virginia Tech, everybody's going to be on them, seeing what they did to win the ACC tournament. Having been in Vegas and watched them completely choke against Clemson during the regular season, I don't see how people can think that this is a squad that could do this. I mean, yes, they did it. They had a nice run in the conference tournament, but if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen my rhetoric of late. It's that conference tournament play is not indicative of how good teams really are, because you're getting everybody on a 1-game basis in back-to-back days when you're not having to go through the grind of a season, and now you're going up against everybody's best shot as opposed to teams that already know they're in the tournament. And it's just a weird dynamic for conference tournaments.
100%. Let's talk Midwest, and we'll jump over there and look for some potential, as Kansas is your 1 seed over there. San Diego State is kind of one of those fun teams. I kind of like the 8-9 line is really interesting. I've been enjoying Creighton a little bit, especially through the end of the season. Iowa, another Big Ten team, really strong, really solid. I don't know that I love them to make a deep run. I think it's interesting. Providence and Creighton may have to face each other again. I don't trust LSU. Didn't they just fire their coach too?
Yeah, they're
a mess,
in a tough spot.
So is everyone going to load up on Iowa State? And is that
honestly, talent-wise, I think LSU could probably match up with anybody in the country. But I guess you could say, focus-wise, even with Will Wade this season, they've gone through lapses of just like boneheadedness during games. I've watched many of their games, and so coming into an 11-6 matchup minus your head coach and your associate head coach. I mean, how focused is this team going to be? I know they're going to be all riled up, but that may play to the opposite effect.
Yeah, they're either going to get absolutely just dump trucked by Iowa State, or they're going to end up in like the Elite Eight. Like that's the two outcomes. I don't see any difference there.
Yeah.
Auburn 2 seed is also incredibly compelling in this region. Has a pretty nice path.
Live and die by the 3, that team.
Yeah, but come tournament time, if they can stay hot, I mean, I could see them getting out of that first weekend for sure, and having a really good chance at a Final Four and maybe even beyond there. So I guess, we can flip over and look at the odds and get an idea of kind of where the bets are coming in. But, in terms of where your head's at, what are you thinking? Who do you like? Any teams you think could be a landmine for people?
Well, I mean, a lot of people are going to be, and rightfully so, Iowa. They're playing defense.
Yeah.
They're big. I mean, Chris and Keegan Murray, the 2 twin brothers for that squad, are tremendous. I mean, Keegan Murray, especially Big Ten Player of the Year, he's averaged scoring over 21 points a game. Like, this team is good. They've got bigs. They're very experienced. I mean, Jordan Bohannon's on like his 10th season here. So they've got a big shot maker. They've got a one-on-one player. Iowa at a 5 seed is very dangerous out of this region.
Yeah. And plus 390, clearly the
that's a
bookmakers are with
great
you.
number. I will say though, Auburn, if they're hitting their threes, I don't know if there's any team, even Iowa, who would be able to necessarily keep up with them scoring.
Yeah. Yeah. So plus 260 is a number I really like. I think they might be the best team. I know Kansas has been really good, but I don't trust Bill Self when it comes to March. I don't know why. San Diego State 23-1 to come out of this region, I think is a real number. You're not buying it? Not this year.
Look. I love the Aztecs being my hometown team, and Matt Bradley has caught on fire over the last month and a half for San Diego State, but they do not have that lead guard that's going to win you games in the tournament.
Yep.
Like Trey Pulliam he just didn't develop into what they thought they were getting. He's not a great shooter. He's not a great free throw shooter. They have a big in Nathan Mensah, but the potential matchup against Kansas with David McCormick, like that kind of.
Can they get Malachi Flynn to come back for one more game?
See, there you go. Like, and that's the thing is like when you find these teams like a San Diego State, who's a little bit lesser known around the country, you need a guy like a Malachi Flynn who's going to be on your team, not a small forward like Matt Bradley, who's smallish and who's not taking anybody off the dribble, really.
Yeah. I know they have to face Kansas, but like Providence is interesting as the 4 seed.
What's crazy is everybody and their brothers picking South Dakota State.
Yeah, and that makes this is the time of year where Contrarian Kyle just flourishes. Because like whatever everybody else is doing, I will just do the opposite. And so often it'll work out really well this time of year. Because Joe Better is coming in to throw $20 on Kansas and $20 on this team, and this team, I know this team from TV. And I just blindly fade them, and that works out so well for me. But I mean, I'm just looking at kind of paths and like teams, and like Creighton. Like it's interesting because Creighton is actually 32-1 to come out of the region. Providence is 35, and Creighton is an 8 seed, 9 seed, and Providence is a 4 seed. It's kind of interesting.
I really think people are discounting, or they're kind of, again, it's recency bias. Like Providence did not look great while getting their butts whooped by Creighton in the Big East tournament. So of course that's going to factor into lines being laid and, the public betting. And South Dakota State, I think is riding like a 20-something game winning streak coming into this. They were undefeated in conference play. They're the best shooting team in the country, and Providence isn't necessarily that good at shooting, but could be the bias part of me. I mean, they play big boy basketball over there in the Big East, and with Ed Cooley, they are not going to allow a team just run on the perimeter and not body them up throughout the game and tire them out. So I think this will be a spot where the contrarian play is actually going with the higher seed in brackets and betting, especially with Providence only being a 2-point favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's going to be some real opportunities to find some value. Anything else here before we move up to the South region?
I will say that Wisconsin Colgate game, for me, it's kind of like a mirror image of each other because Colgate does a lot well on offense in terms of the system they like to run. They're a pretty experienced team. Watch out for, I believe his name is Jordan Burns, shooting guard for Colgate. Guy can light it up from deep. And if Wisconsin's Johnny Davis is not firing on all cylinders, watch out. At 14, they play the kind of basketball that can match up with Wisconsin's slower pace too.
Yep. And we've seen 3-14s actually are a little bit different. So like in the previous years, it wouldn't really matter. But here we go. Head up to the South. Arizona, your 1 seed there. Houston, the 5 seed, actually, according to Ken Palm, is the 4th best team in the country. Take Ken Palm for what you will. I tend to look at it. I think it's interesting. I'm stats and data driven, so that obviously applies to me. Tennessee's a 3. My Ohio State Buckeyes are number 7. Nova is the 2 seed. I don't like. Is there really that much difference between Nova and Providence and Creighton?
I think the thing for Villanova is their experienced backcourt.
Yeah, well, they have like Jordan Bohannon. They have the Gillespie who's been there for like 13 years. So
yeah, exactly. When you got Colin Gillespie and Justin Moore and Samuels, in your backcourt, and now they've integrated was that Brandon Slater a little bit more on the front court. Like again, they're very talented, but my issue for Nova, back to what it used to be with them, is lack of size. They don't have the big guy down low. So if they run into a team who can match their athleticism on the perimeter and they have a big, they're gonna find it difficult.
Yeah. So Arizona is your clear favorite in this region. Vegas thinks they have a legit chance to make a noise. Nova's plus 390, Tennessee at 5-1, Houston at 6-1. I think is going to be a bet for me. I think Houston's good. I think Ken Palm has some real numbers, and I think we can make some noise. Your Michigan Wolverines here, 23-1, ahead of my Ohio State Buckeyes. Is there a path to us playing in the tournament here, Brian?
We would play in the Sweet 16 if possible.
Let's go. Let it happen.
Let me just throw this out there. Yes, you could call me a homer, but Michigan has shown in spurts this year to be able to beat any team in the country. If Hunter Dickinson is getting fed the ball down low, there's not many teams in the country that can match that kind of defense or can match that kind of offense. And if their guys are hitting shots on the perimeter, they could make some noise here. I know a lot of people are going to be on Colorado State. This is a very short line, 2.5, but personally, I think they're too big for them. They'll easily destroy them. And then Tennessee worries me with the not being able to score consistently, just like Michigan. And Dickinson is a good 3 inches taller than Fulkerson for the Vols. So I mean, I'm not normally the optimist when it comes to my own teams, but there's a legit shot that Michigan is getting through to the second weekend.
Yeah, and they were a team that there was high expectations for. They haven't lived up to those expectations, but the talent's obviously there. They have some experience. They know what they're doing. Juwan Howard, despite his post-game altercations.
And I think something uber important about this Michigan squad is the fact that the experience level of them in tournament runs, getting to, Elite Eights and all that is there. Other than Caleb Houston and Musa Diabate, the 3/5 of the starting roster is all upper, or not Dickinson. He's not upperclassman, but he made the run last year. Eli Brooks and Devontae Jones, who, by the way, was what conference? I think it's the Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year last year at Coastal Carolina, has really come on late to potentially be that guard, like we talk about, who could say take over a game for 5 minutes. And
Really interesting to see Michigan 23-1 to come out of the region. Colorado State 60-1, yet such a short line. I guess it's if Michigan can get through this game, they have a path. They have the upside, so they are more of a feared team. Loyola Chicago here don't have Porter Moser anymore. It's not the old. They're pretty much just rocking Sister Jean at this point. So
TCU at that 80-1 number is not something to pass up too easily either. Just knowing that they can play defense with anybody. I mean, we've seen it in the Big 12. They beat Kansas. They've beaten Texas Tech. They've beaten a bunch of really good teams because they play that kind of defense with Jamie Dixon that they can shut some good offenses down. And if they can muddy up the game, I mean, watch out.
Yeah, I just like most of those teams with Pitt. Like, I just don't know if they have the offense to.
Well, with them playing Arizona in the second round, in all likelihood,
that's also a big part of why that number is.
Like, it would be a very small bet, but I mean,
but if you can get through that game, it all opens up for you.
Yeah.
So you throw $5 on it, throw $1 on it, and then obviously if you get through and play Arizona, you throw it a little bit on the TCU money line there. You get through, you're loving life.
Honestly, I did want to go back to the top of the grid with this.
Yeah,
bracket.
I think that's the place to go because the teams at the bottom it ain't it.
I feel like the best value in this region has got to be Illinois. At 10-1, they open the year as one of the favorites. They have a big and Kofi Coburn who can dominate a game. They have the guards that is necessary to make a run in the tournament with Alonzo Plummer, with Frazier, with friggin' Cubello. Like, if this team is playing up to the expectations that we thought we were going to see with them, they could beat anybody in the country, including Arizona. So at 10-1, that is a great number.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of what ifs in this region. Like, there's just a lot of teams that could have had, should have had.
Yeah. And the Houston number would be a lot higher too if they weren't missing their top two players in Marcus Sasser and Trayvon Mark. So like that's gonna be big when you start to play the big boys in the tournament.
Yeah, that's not ideal. So there is some value if you don't believe in Arizona. You could even take Illinois, take Michigan, take Ohio State. Hope one of the Big Ten team finds a way to make it out of here.
Yep.
Let's head to the West, and that is up and to the left over here, and we'll look at here Gonzaga, number 1 seed. Chet Holmgren, that team is loaded. Mark Few knows what he's doing. Drew Timmy's been ready to go back and make up for what happened last year. A lot of other just interesting teams. Duke's here, obviously. We can get to them. Bama is interesting. Arkansas is a team that when they're at their best can play with anybody.
Exactly. But it's which team are we going to see?
Yeah, the team we saw in the SEC tournament was not it. That ain't it. So if we can get Arkansas back on the rails, they can be really good. Memphis might be one of the most talented teams in this bracket. They're really good. Penny has them rolling.
Yeah.
They're kind of finding their form at the right time, but having to play Gonzaga. But I mean, if I'm a team, like I feel like I'd rather play Gonzaga early because I think if they get their form, they get their form, they get into that second weekend, they start getting the vibes going, they feel good. It's an easy way to get it, but I feel like Memphis can beat Boise State, and they have the size. And,
I was just gonna say the one thing I worry about with Memphis, like you said, athletically and just talent wise, I feel like they're one of the best teams in the country. And over the last few months, or I think it was like the last 6 weeks of the season, I forget what metric it was. They were actually performing at the second most efficient level of any college basketball team in the country. Now, you've seen it throughout this year, though, is that oftentimes they go through, again, lapses of concentration or just they play poor ball on the court for a few minutes at a time. And against a team like a Gonzaga, that is how you lose the game. You're going to have to play your A game for the entire 40 minutes.
Yep.
And I just don't know if they're capable of doing that and back-to-back games in high pressure situations.
Yeah, 100%. So January, February, Izzo, are we back on Michigan State?
I'm normally an Izzo person. Yeah, I should hate them because I love Michigan, but I don't know how you can't respect what Tom Izzo does in March. I love
Yeah.
this Davidson team though, man. Like
Yeah.
this, people are forgetting the point guard for Davidson, Foster Lawyer, former Michigan State recruit. Like there's a few
How amazing would that
little
be?
tidbits here for this game. Like I'm thoroughly looking forward to this.
Let's
Davidson
look
has
at
a
the
big who is like Tim Duncan, so I
yeah.
think Michigan State will have issues there. That game is going to be really exciting.
So let's take a look at the odds. Gonzaga minus 140 to come out of the
That's
region.
ridiculous,
That
man.
seems excessive.
Yeah, they're
I
good.
kind of want to attack the region just because of the potential value.
Yeah.
Duke at plus 460, Tech at plus 550, Arkansas at 14-1. That's a number I could find myself getting to. Memphis at 32-1. That's a number I could find myself getting to. We just made the case for Memphis to beat Gonzaga. Obviously, it's
It's going to
the
be a double digit spread if
right.
if they face them for
So
sure.
you get 8-1 on the money line against Gonzaga, plus 32-1. Memphis gets out of this and and runs to the Final Four. You're gonna be loving life.
Dude, Alabama at 24-1. Yeah, they've been up and down this season, but they're another team. They came into the year with lofty expectations. Nate Oates as head coach. They have the talent. It's just about putting it together at the right time. And last year we saw it with UCLA. That's what I mean. This year, I feel like you're going to get a couple of these teams that underperformed during the regular season to kind of show up when it matters most.
Davidson 100-1. Don't hate it. Notre Dame stinks.
Yeah, not get Notre Dame out of here.
Talk to me about Duke. What's your question or your concern? Watch them play a lot in the ACC tournament. They seemed a little lethargic to start games, and then we kind of turn it on when they're at their peak. They have the guards. They have Paulo Banchero or whatever his name is. Banchero, what's his name?
Yeah, I think it's Banchero.
Banchero.
Trevor Keels, Roach. They're
Yeah.
loaded.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But how can you trust a team who lost Coach K's last game at home, lost the game against North Carolina,
Should have lost to Syracuse,
lost to friggin' Virginia Tech, like as I think there were 9-point favorites or something. Like
yeah,
how can you trust a
yeah.
squad that couldn't put it together in order to send Coach K off with a dub? Like,
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry.
A lot of pressure on 18-year-old kids, and like we talked about, Brian, from the jump, we can't put too much on the conference tournament. You can't say the conference tournament is like not really that important.
Regular season finale, though, man.
They lost the conference tournament.
Regular season finale against Carolina. That's where I'm going back to. That was
so much pressure for 18-year-old kids.
Major. What do you think the pressure is going to be in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah,
every night.
I'm a little more optimistic, but yes, I understand where you're coming from.
Honestly, from the get in this conference, and I've really been monitoring their odds over the last couple of weeks. That's Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
I love what they're doing. They have part of the duo of Oral Roberts, who sent them to the Sweet 16 last year, and Kevin O'Banner, who he plays like a role player for the Red Raiders. So I mean, that just shows you how deep this team is.
And on those nights where they have issues scoring, here comes O'Banner, who's comfortable in that role, who's like, you want to have multiple outs, right? You want to have an ability where if one player isn't having it, the shots aren't dropping, you have somebody else who could potentially step up. You have a guy who could hit 6 threes in a game. You have, you can play amazing defense. Like there's different ways to get to that end. So I think having options like that is huge.
Yeah, and they're fairly experienced. I know it's a lot of transfers that came in there, but they're all upperclassmen. And again, we go into a tournament, like you need guys who can be able to sustain the pressure that is going to be on them in these situations. And that's why I love Texas Tech in this region.
Yep. And we talk about we like Texas, we like Kansas, we like, other Big 10 or Big 12 teams that, there was competition all season. So they got to play together against some of the best teams in the country.
Yep.
And kind of get that strength. So I'm with you there. Let's flip over. Let's look at some national championship odds and see if we can't find some teams we may like. Gonzaga is your favorite, 3-1. Arizona 6, Kentucky 8.5, Kansas at 10-1 is interesting. Baylor as the 1 seed is at 12-1. That's kind of interesting, but Auburn 16. Do like any of these numbers? We'll start, inside that kind of 20-1 range. Any numbers jumping out to you?
I mean, for me, like I said at the jump, Gonzaga and Arizona are the best 2 teams in the country, just as far as all around talent and what we've seen throughout the year. I will say Arizona, of the teams that got 1 seeds, they probably had the weakest non-conference schedule as after the season had progressed, seeing who they had played. Yeah, they played Michigan, but Michigan wasn't quite the team that we thought they were going to be. So, I mean, that knocks that down a little bit. So I worry about having to go through the gauntlet of once you get to the Elite 8, where now you're having to play 3 consecutive games against other top conference teams. I don't know if they've seen that kind of back-to-back-to-back scheduling against teams at that caliber yet this year.
You see that okay, Brian? I wanted to throw up odds checkers grid just to get an idea of some of the different prices, because you always want to shop these. A lot of them, you're going to find different numbers depending on where you look. Like if you
what is going on with Kentucky and Baylor?
Yeah, look at Kentucky plus 240 at FanDuel. And then you can get it as high as 8 or 9. So shop it. I don't know what's going on with FanDuel. Maybe their books. We were just looking at FanDuel. Let's see, because I think the import is just not correct on that. Yeah, because it's 12.
Yeah, that must be like pre-tournament.
But for the most part, they're pretty on brand. But really important to find the best number you can find. Any beyond the upper elites, we have Duke, we have Purdue, who we both had some interest in. I think Tennessee and Texas Tech are both interesting. You can get a 25-1 on both of them. UCLA, who we really liked, 28 here.
UCLA and Illinois coming into the tournament are probably my 2 favorite value champion bets at the moment. I mean, look at that for Illinois, 50-1. Yeah. Preseason, I think they were like 12-1 or 14-1. I mean, what did they do exactly to tell us that they're not still up to that level? I mean, they played in one of the best conferences in college basketball.
Yeah, and I think part of it is you have to look at the path too. So, like, obviously, some of these teams will have a tougher path, more direct competition. It probably depends on who you're looking at, coming out of the who they have to face to come out. But I wouldn't mind taking a shot on Texas if I can get that 100-1 number.
Yeah. I mean, it really is more about path than it is, I guess, just how good your team is, because some teams, their path is a lot easier.
Yep. And the numbers reflect that. Any of these longer shots that you'd be willing to take a shot on? I mean, here's your Wolverines. You can get them at 150-1, 125-1.
I just don't know if they can. I don't know. As a Michigan fan, I wouldn't be able to bet that.
Yeah, 100%.
Texas, though, at that 100-1 number, I absolutely love that.
Arkansas, I think at 66-1 is a number I could get behind.
Wisconsin at 80-1. I know they're not flashy, but
I don't trust them. They're just too boring. What's wrong with Ohio State? Why are they way down here? I mean, I guess that's the 250 number probably throwing it off. But
I feel like for Ohio State, it's guard play. I mean, they're led by a freshman, Malachi. The heck is his name? Backman, or I forget the dude's name, but you have EJ Liddell, but they're not quite the same team as last year, who lost in the first round to Oral Roberts. So I think,
and once again, guard play is much more important than having a solid big.
Yeah.
I don't know that
I really like Richmond too. I don't know if Richmond is going to be able to make any noise or even get out of the first round.
Yeah, but let's look at like Final Four odds, right? Because that could be like a team like Richmond, or a team that maybe has a little bit longer of of a path a little bit.
Like Richmond, for instance, they have to face Iowa. So, right. I mean, that is a tall task because Iowa's a very underseeded 5 seed.
So, like, to make the Final Four, you get Memphis 32-1. Like, I think that's a number we could get behind. I think that's just these are that's not. Never mind. No, yeah, these are the numbers we were just looking at because
I feel like okay. So if you go back up to Indiana's number, for instance, to make the Final Four, 45-1. If look at a team like Indiana who was able to compete and potentially beat Illinois the way they did in the Big Ten tournament. Yes, don't take too much out of that, but we've seen them be able to play with the top Big Ten teams. Their path is not easy, but it's a little bit easier. I mean, for instance, if they get past Wyoming, they play St. Mary's, who they should be bigger, like more athletic than, they can win that game. After that, they're going to face maybe UCLA, which, yeah, I love UCLA, but Indiana is the kind of defense that can stop a lot of people. And then
I just worry about playing that extra game. I feel like that at some point that attrition is just going to wear on you.
Hey, man, UCLA, it literally propelled them into the state of mind to get them to the Final Four last year.
It's very, very true.
Like and that's all it takes.
Yeah.
And they have guard Xavier Johnson, who can take over games. Trace Jackson Davis and Reese Thompson on the front line. Like, that's a great duo down there.
I think this region's the most interesting in terms of beyond Kansas. I don't know that I like any one team really stands out above the rest. And I think if you're making a Final Four bet, you might be able to find some value with these teams.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people are going Iowa out of that region.
It makes sense. But like Creighton, I think makes sense. I think not necessarily Providence, but I don't know. Okay. So we talked each region. We talked some of our favorite teams. I think the thing to do now is let's do this. We'll do a draft. And we'll each pick 4 teams. So we'll go eight total picks. And we'll pick winner. Like who we think, like we'll pick our favorite teams. You get each round you get farther, you get more points. So you get 1 point for winning your first game, 2 points for winning your second game, 3, 4, 5, all the way to the championship. So and we'll see who has a better squad at the end of this. If you want to write this down, Brian, I would greatly appreciate it as I click around like a crazy person. But if you do that for me, I will let you have the first pick in the bracket. Who is, if you can pick any team that's going to be cutting down the nets when it's all said and done. You have the first pick. Where
Give
you
me
going?
Arizona.
You want Arizona?
Yeah.
All right, I'll take Gonzaga.
Hey, it's the school I actually attend college with, so maybe they'll see that and I'll get some free tickets or something.
I'm not banking on it, but I like where your head's at. All right, well, I'll take Gonzaga. We're gonna do the snake draft, so I'll go again. I'm gonna take Auburn.
Ooh, I like that. This is rough, man. I like that pick with Auburn.
Purdue's there, Kentucky's there, Kansas is there, Baylor.
Now, are we getting extra points for like the lower the seed they are?
I mean, if you want to figure out the math, go for it. I was just trying to draft some teams and
okay, all right.
Make this quick.
All right, go ahead. I'm gonna give me Kansas.
Yeah,
I've liked them for a while now.
I think that's the move. All right, and then make your next pick.
Oh, that's right.
You need to go back to back. So
I like this format. Gotta go a little bit sneaky here. Give me Purdue.
Okay. So far you have Arizona, Kansas, and Purdue.
Yep.
And I have Gonzaga and Auburn. Give me Duke.
Ugh.
Give me Duke.
They don't have JJ Redick anymore, so I can't
No, they
back them.
sure don't, or Grant Hill, but that's okay. And then for my fourth and final pick, Wreckham Tech, guns up, Houston, Texas
Ooh.
Tech.
I like that. I like that. That was where I was gonna go next.
Sorry to do that to you.
All right. No, I can't do it. Just so. Damn
You
it.
could just take Michigan. I mean, you know
No,
what
I
we'll do
can't.
to make it 5-5. I'll give you Michigan, you give me Ohio State, and then we'll each have 5 teams.
Okay, yeah, we'll just add those teams there. But all right, my next one, UCLA.
Okay, I think it's a really good value. I think it's a good pick. All right, Brian, that was fun. We went through all the regions. We talked about some of our favorite odds, some of our favorite teams. I know you mentioned to me that you've already bet Michigan minus what, 2.5?
Yeah.
Any other numbers jumping out to you as potential values, potential numbers that you might want to jump on now that but come, game time is going to be significantly different?
Well, it's really hard because like these lines aren't going to move much as we get closer to the game
No.
because rosters are set and they're both in neutral sites. But I feel like getting Gonzaga laying the 23.5 against Georgia State is
I was just going to
probably the
say, should
play
we be
here.
betting Georgia State into 23.5?
No, like
The one thing about Gonzaga, though, is they play a lot of these like not very good teams and beat the crap out of them.
yeah.
Where Kansas or like Duke don't really do that throughout the year, so that is something.
And then another spot that I feel like is a good early way to get some exposure to this team is Auburn. Right now is only 5-point favorite over Vermont. A lot of
Yep.
people are, oh, Vermont, the Catamounts, they're one of the most experienced teams in the tournament. They're going to upset the Tigers, but I mean, Bruce Pearl's teams seem to show up when they really need to. And like I said, if Auburn's hitting on all cylinders and they're making their threes, this game will be double-digit lead in a matter of seconds. So I think getting at that 5 number is a great
Yeah.
spot.
Yep. And as you mentioned, South Dakota State is getting a lot of love, so I might just jump on. I'd be patient for it for sure, but I think Providence minus 2.5 is a good number. UNC getting a lot of love versus against Marquette.
So they're
Memphis
going to
is
get a
getting
lot of the public money.
Memphis is getting 81% of the money. I might bet Boise State there.
No, that's what I was going to say is let that line get bigger because a lot
Yeah.
of people don't realize that this Boise State team is
No.
for real. I mean, think
I
about who they had
watched
to
a
beat
lot of Mountain West basketball between Boise State and San Diego State and Wyoming.
Boise State beat the Aztecs 3 times this year, just to give you an idea at
It's
how
really good.
good they are. And I mean, I can say all I want about the Aztecs not being able to score, but in terms of defense, this is probably the most sound defensive team in the country, the
Yeah.
Aztecs. And Boise State has beaten them 3 different times, and all 3 times they were, I don't want to say decisive, but at the end of the game they pulled away. So this Broncos team is very experienced themselves. They're big. They shoot the 3 at a very efficient rate, and they play a great defense.
Yep. On Thursday, the biggest discrepancies between bets and money. Georgia State, 36% of the bets, 85% of the money. Tennessee, 56% of the bets, 89% of the money. And Vermont, 48% of the bets, 81% of the money. Something to think about. And then as we head to Friday, Purdue, 23% of the bets, 64% of the money, or 87% of the money, 64% difference.
Woo!
Colgate, 72% of your bets, 96% of your money.
Dude, I told you,
Uh,
man, watch out for that Colgate squad.
yep.
I'm telling you.
Yep. And Montana State, 15.5-point underdogs, 74% of your bets, 93% of your money. It's all per Action Network. So, each book's going to be a little different, but
They really think Montana State is going to be able to keep it within 16 of the Red Raiders?
Apparently.
Oh man, let this thing keep getting further down. I'll take the Big 12 in the first round all day.
And we might get Texas at a pick 'em against Vautech, which is a number I think I could find myself getting towards.
Yeah, I liked the Hokies to come into the year, but this Texas team was one of my favorites entering the season, and I think they turned it on for tournament time.
That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. We'll be back Wednesday to talk more NASCAR, and then obviously Saturday get you ready for NASCAR DFS. We have some football shows in the hopper as well, so we're going to get those going with all the shenanigans going there, talk some movement, figure out where the best numbers are to get. The Chargers line is moving, obviously with Tampa Bay back. That number, if you got it at 25, 28, you're loving it.
It was at 30-1 at some spots.
It's crazy. So we'll be back to break all that down. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Let us know down in the comments, Masters or March Madness, and your pick to win the 2022 NCAA tournament. And we'll talk to you guys next time.
Go Blue.